Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be discussing my modified Pagani design PD-1644. On the left we have my white dial PD-1644 and on the right we have a silver dial PD-1664. So both of these watches are available from Pagani Design Global AliExpress store for €104. Alternatively, you can purchase both watches from Benyar store on Amazon.com for $97. So originally my intention was to fit the white dial into the 1664 on the right, because currently Pagani Design do not produce a white dial version of the 1664, they only produce the 1644 on the bracelet. So I took both watches apart today and I tried to swap over the dials, and then I found it's impossible to do that because the white dial is 31.4mm diameter and the silver dial is 30.4mm diameter respectively. So the white dial is 1mm larger than the silver dial and therefore it won't fit into the 1664 case. So then I decided on a plan B and I decided to fit my Bonetto Centurini strap. You'll have seen this previously reviewed. I fitted it to a 1692 and it fitted the 1692 very well because it's a 20mm and it's got a nice curved profile to the strap. And I've wanted to use this Bonetto Centurini strap on a watch for a long time, and I decided this would be the perfect opportunity. I tested it out on this 1644 as you can see, and it fits very well. Now, when I fitted the flip block clasp, I found that it sits off center, and this is something I also disliked when I put it on my 1692, and I wanted to centralize it. So as you can see, I fitted one of the oyster links from the bracelet into the strap, and therefore that moves the clasp over to the right. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see what I'm talking about. So I've now sized it correctly to fit my 8-inch wrist. Nice positive click to it, and as you can see, the flip block clasp now sits centrally on my wrist. Previously it was sitting too far to the left, but by adding the additional link it moves it over to the right, and I've been able to move the rubber strap internally inside the body of the clasp to the center of the 3 micro adjustments. Now I'll give you a tip on adjusting the micro adjustments because often collectors report difficulty with that. If you look at the EasyLink style extension, I've now deployed it. As you can see the groove, and that groove engages with the spring bar internally in the body of the clasp. If you flip over the EasyLink style extension, you can see in one of the links there is a slot, and it's actually very difficult to get a spring bar tool into that slot in order to depress the spring bar and move the EasyLink extension inside the body of the clasp into the 3 different dimples. So I would suggest the easy way of doing it, this is something that collectors often struggle with. Pagani Design used this style of EasyLink extension on several models, the 1661, the 1662 and the 1644 for example. The easy way of doing it is, first of all, remove this end, the 6 o'clock end, from the head of the piece, and if you remove the bracelet you'll be able to flip it over, and that means you're not fighting the bracelet, because otherwise when you're trying to engage the spring bar into the slots in the underside of the link, as which I'll show you, it's actually difficult because the bracelet is in the way of the spring bar tool. So just to demonstrate what I'm talking about, you'll be trying to fit the end of the spring bar into this slot, and it's a very tight fit, but the problem is the bracelet will be in your way, so it's difficult to see, and it's also difficult to get the spring bar tool into the slot. So first of all, undo the bracelet and then you can flip it over and move it out of your way, and then you've got a good look at the slot. Now this is a poor design really. It would be better if Pagani Design had milled a slot in both links as per conventional end links in a bracelet, because then one could depress one end and then depress the other end of the spring bar, and that would make moving it out of position easier. I've removed the clasp from a couple of Pagani Design watches. I previously did the same thing fitting the Bonetto Centurini strap to the 1692, and what I found on 2 occasions is the spring bar actually fell apart on the 1692, and it also fell apart today on this 1644. So I would say to you, before attempting to do this, it's better to buy a set of spring bars. Now this set of spring bars are very good because they're double flanged, they're made from stainless steel. They're H&S brand. I bought them from Amazon for only €7 for a set of 360 pieces, and it covers every size from 8mm up to 25mm, including the common sizes of 20 and 22. So the PD-1644 and the 1664 both use 20mm spring bars. The internal spring bar and the EasyLink extension, you'll need a 16mm, and I found that the 16mm spring bar, which I'll show you, fits perfectly inside the body of the clasp. It's actually a better fit than the spring bar that Pagani Design are using. As you can see, there are 3 dimples inside the body of the clasp. I've now moved the end of the strap into the central one, position 2, and I'm using a 16mm spring bar, and it's a perfect fit. It just snaps into the dimples either side of the body of the clasp perfectly, and it's not going to pop out accidentally. It's a nice tight fit. So it's worth having some spare 16mm spring bars, because if you try to remove the spring bar, if you try and depress it to adjust the EasyLink extension to get the micro adjustment, the end of the bracelet moved inside the body, often what will happen is it will either stick closed or stick open. When you depress it, it won't spring back open. If you try to remove it, as I've done, inevitably it falls to bits. So it's better to get a set of 16mm spring bars. So this set's really good value, 360 spring bars, all different sizes, for only €7, and they're very good quality because they're double flanged. Often with low quality Chinese spring bars, they only have a single flange. The advantage of having a double flanged spring bar is the 2-prong fork. I'll just get the camera to focus. The 2-prong fork in the end of the spring bar engages in between the 2 flanges. There we are, it's focused. So it makes it easier to actually remove the spring bar. If you've got 2 flanges rather than 1, you can get the 2-prong fork in between the 2 flanges, and it makes it easier depressing them. So as you can see, this spring bar tool has a very fine 2-prong fork. This is a Bergen 6767F. It's Swiss made, and it's professional quality spring bar tool, and the ends of the spring bar tool are removable, so when they become blunt and worn, you can simply buy the ends from Amazon. They're €7 rather than having to replace the entire spring bar tool itself. So this is available from Amazon for €27, and I've used this for the last 5 years, and it's still on the original set. It has a 2-prong fork at one end, and at the other end we've just got a push pin, as you can see. Very high quality. The ends are made from tool steel, which is hardened, and the body itself, which has knurled shanks, is made from stainless steel, so it's not going to rust or corrode, and it's really high quality. Now, the reason why I recommend you buy one of these is, if you look closely at the end of it, a characteristic of the 6767F is that it has a very fine precision ground 2-prong fork. As you can see, it's a lot slimmer than other spring bar tool forks. And the advantage of it is you can just get it inside the slot. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. If you look there, there's a very fine slot in the end of the EasyLink style extension, and most spring bar tools won't fit in between the slots. But with this 6767F, if you tilt it sideways, if you twist it, as you can see, it's just slim enough to fit in between the slots. So that means you can depress the spring bar inside the EasyLink extension, and then you can move it inside the body of the clasp. So I would say to you, the first thing to do is purchase one of these, and the second thing to do is purchase a set of these spring bar tools, because you will need 16mm spring bars if the one that comes in this EasyLink extension inevitably falls apart. And then you'll be able to move it about. Now, there's only one problem with replacing it. If you replace it with the 16mm spring bar from that set, you'll find that the diameter of the shank is actually too thin to click in and out of the EasyLink. So you'll lose the functionality of the EasyLink extension. It won't snap in and out of around the spring bar as per the original. Pagani Design used an unusual size because it's 16mm, but the actual body of it is very thick. It's thicker than a conventional spring bar that one would use in a watch strap or bracelet. So you'll lose the functionality of the EasyLink, but however, it will be easier to move the 16mm spring bar, because these are better quality than the spring bars which Pagani Design use, and they fall to bits. So I'll show you there's something else which is different about these two pieces. Now, they do look very similar, but the cases are actually different. If you look closely at the two screw down crowns, you can see they're different. On the 1664, which is the silver dial version on the rubber strap, that has an embossed Pagani Design brand logo. Now on the top you're looking at the white dial 1644, and that has the later style of crown, which has a mirror polished Pagani Design logo, and it's not embossed, it doesn't stick out as much, as you can see. On the early versions of the 1661, they used this style of crown, and they also used it on the early versions of the 1662. It had this domed cap, and it's embossed with a 3D effect Pagani Design emblem, and as you can see the crown is larger. But this white dial 1644 has a later style of crown. As you can see, the crown on this is larger. It's like the crowns used on the current 1661, the latest version, and it's got the more modern style to it. It's mirror polished and it's flatter profile. Now I actually prefer this style of screw down crown. I think it's better because, as you can see, it sticks out of the crown guards more and it's easy to get a grip on it. With this one on the 1664, you can see it's more recessed. The crown guards have a different profile, so it's actually more difficult to get a grip of this crown. I think the design of this one, the 1644, is better done than this one on the right, the 1664. So the cases are different, although they do look similar. They are both the same dimensions and both 20mm lug width. The other notable difference is this one has solid end links. Now the solid end link is actually part of the case. It looks like it's removable, but it's not. It's actually made as part of the case, and that's the main difference. You can only fit rubber straps and NATO straps to this piece. You can't fit the bracelet from a 1644 to a 1664 because of this end link, which can't be removed. So they're incompatible. The bracelet from a 1644 cannot be fitted to a 1664, as you can see. Now I dislike when there's a gap. For example, if you use this straight end strap and you put it onto this 1644, there would be a gap between the spring bar and the case. I dislike that unsightly gap, and this is something I like about this 1644 because it has this solid end link as part of the case. That fills in the gap and it looks better. So my intention was to put the white dial inside this silver dial version and create a new watch, a white dial 1664, because it's something that Pagani Design don't make and I would like to see them make. So it didn't go to plan, and I ended up creating this watch instead, the 1644, but with an integrated rubber strap. It's got curved ends, and the curved ends fit very well, and I'm very pleased with them. Now there is something else that's different about the two pieces. If you look at the case back on the 1644, it's flatter and lower profile on the 1644. I actually think it's better done. I like the Pagani Design emblem engraved, as you can see. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. Now if I show you the 1664, it doesn't have the same profile. It's actually a lot thicker, and the centre section is raised, and it's got this abhorrent starfish, which is completely irrelevant to this being an homage to the Daytona. I think the Pagani Design emblem looks much better than having a starfish. Now they've engraved the specification to a high standard, but the case back on this 1644 is thicker. And they're both 100-metre water-resistant pieces, so there's no need to have a thicker central section. It doesn't need to have a clearance for a rotor, for example. It's not an automatic piece. So looking at the two case backs, I actually prefer the case back on the 1644, as you can see, because it has the Pagani Design emblem and it's completely flat and smooth, and it's lower profile, so it actually wears lower on the wrist. Although they're very similar in terms of their thickness, the 1644 actually is a lower profile piece. It's slightly thinner and it has a flatter case back, and I think it's a better executed piece as a result. With this one, it's got that raised centre section, and the thing is you can actually feel it because the centre circle is raised. As you can see, it's got that lip, so it rubs against the wrist. And the other thing is it pushes it up. There's a gap underneath the case, as you can see. It sticks up on the wrist. It's taller as a result. It makes the watch thicker. So comparing the two pieces, I actually think the 1644 is a better executed piece. I prefer the larger crown. I also think it's better proportions, and I think it's better because you can fit curved end rubber straps and also bracelets on this piece, but with this you're limited because you can only put straight end straps or NATO straps on it. You can't put the bracelets, as I've discussed. So really the 1644 was a better case than this 1664, although they do look very similar. They use the same sapphire crystals, the same bezels. The screw down pushers are the same, different crowns, different cases and different case backs as I've discussed. So I'll just give you another wrist shot and you can see how this fits on my wrist. Now I'm absolutely delighted with this piece, and although it was unexpected, I didn't actually intend to make this today. I was going to put this white dial into the other watch. I actually ended up making a watch that I like so much, I've decided to add this to my own personal collection. I've really liked the white dial 1644 for a long time. However, the bracelet is a disappointment because there is a lot of play in the links. I've reviewed this. I've reviewed the white dial 1644, and I've also previously reviewed this silver dial 1664. So if you haven't seen those reviews, please feel free to check them out. I've also reviewed the meteorite dial version. But I always like this, but I dislike the bracelet because it rattles. The end links have a lot of play, a lot of slack. It's a sloppy bracelet. There's a lot of play in the links. And although the clasp itself is okay, there's no sharp edges, no sharp burrs. It lacks a glide lock extension. It does have an easy link style extension, as I've discussed. So the clasp is acceptable, but the bracelet itself is a disappointment. It looks okay, but there's a lot of play and it rattles. So I always thought it would look better on a rubber strap. And however, I dislike the idea of putting it on a straight end rubber strap because then one gets this abhorrent gap. But with this curved end integrated strap, which has a nice curved profile to it, one doesn't get that gap. And I think it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I really like it. Now, the thing that has surprised me about this is it is one of the most comfortable watches I have ever worn. It feels absolutely weightless. It feels perfectly balanced because the effect of having the stainless steel clasp on the underside of the rubber strap means that there is some weight. It's heavier than a buckle and tang, as per a conventional rubber strap like this, as you can see. This is much lighter, but the problem with a buckle and tang is it doesn't balance the head of the piece. When wearing this piece, it always feels slightly top heavy, and it feels like the head of the piece wants to rotate around the wrist. It never sits unless you do up the strap tight so it can't rotate. And bear in mind, I like to wear my watches loose so that they can slide up and down the wrist bone. So this feels more top heavy. It doesn't feel as well balanced due to using the buckle and tang. But with this piece, because it has the flip lock clasp, it's heavier. And that actually gives weight to the underside of the rubber strap. And it means that the strap always sits centrally. And that's why I was keen to get it in the centre of the wrist bone rather than offset to one side, because that has the effect of pulling the watch all the time to the 12 o'clock position rather than being balanced between 12 and 6. So now it's perfectly balanced, and as you can see, it's got a nice curved profile, so it doesn't have a big gap underneath it. And it feels invisible on wrist. I've been wearing this all day, and it's just one of the most comfortable watches I've ever worn. I absolutely love the look of the flip lock clasp, and I don't mind the addition of the extra link because it does get the position correct. And because it's got the mirror polish centre link in the Oyster link, it matches the mirror polish centre section of the clasp. Now, this strap is from Benetto Centurini, and as I discussed in my review, they do not retail directly to collectors. They wholesale straps to brands, and brands often rebrand them as their own. So if you want to do this modification with a flip lock clasp like this, you can purchase a very similar rubber strap from AliExpress. There's a seller called Professional Watch Strap Store, and they sell the rubber straps on flip lock clasp like this, and they also just sell the rubber strap itself. The rubber strap alone is €12, and it's got a curved end, and it looks very similar to this. They do it in a variety of colours, including black, and it's made from rubber rather than being made from silicone, so the quality looks good. Nice curved profile to the end of it. So €12, you can transform the look of your PD-1644 to look just like this, and it's completely compatible with the Pagani design flip lock. Has a 20mm lug width, and you'll be able to just simply remove the 16mm spring bar, which will fall to bits as I've discussed. So you need to have a set of these on hand. 16mm is the correct size, and also you'll need to have one of these Bergen 6767F spring bar tools. But you can do this yourself using that strap. It's Professional Watch Strap Store on AliExpress for €12, and I really think the rubber strap with a curved end really enhances the 1644. I think it's better looking than this 1664. The solid end link does look good. It does look like a Rolex Daytona, but when I look at the two side by side, I actually think the curved end rubber strap looks better than this solid end link, which isn't removable. And yes, this does look better than just having the straight end rubber strap with no end link to fill in the gap. For example, if you put this straight end rubber strap on this piece, you would have a gap. But looking at the two side by side, I think the white dial version looks better than this silver dial version, although I do like both pieces. So although my modification didn't go to plan, because the dials are different sizes, 1mm different in diameter, I actually ended up with a watch that I really like the look of, and as I've discussed, I've decided to add it to my own personal collection. It's a champagne watch for lemonade money. I'm absolutely delighted with it. So I hope you've liked my discussion of my modified Pagani design, PD-1644. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.